You ever feel like you're doing all the right things for your heart, diet, exercise, maybe your regular cholesterol numbers look pretty good, but there's still this nagging question mark, like maybe something important isn't being looked at. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Because for a lot of people, that missing piece could be something called lipoprotein, or LPA.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting right off the bat is that your LPA level is largely down to your genes.
That's such a crucial point. We've focused quite rightly on LDL cholesterol for ages, but LPA, well, it's another independent risk factor, and we're talking serious events here.
Yeah.
Heart attack, stroke, even aortic stenosis. And the really frustrating thing has been that for decades, we just haven't had good ways to significantly lower it. It's been, like our source material says, therapeutically untouchable.
Therapeutically untouchable. Yeah, that really paints a picture, doesn't it? Like a problem we couldn't even get close to. But here's where it gets, well, really interesting. Scientists have been working on this new approach called RNA interference, or RNAi. And it sounds like this could actually be a real game changer for tackling LPA.
It's fascinating, the precision of RNAi. Think of it like this. DNA is the blueprint, right? And RNA is the messenger carrying instructions to build proteins. RNAi basically acts like a tiny pair of scissors, or maybe a silencer. It intercepts and neutralizes that specific messenger RNA for apolipoprotein, that's a key part of LPA, before it even gets to the protein factor in the liver. And their early results, they're pretty dramatic. We're seeing like 80 to 95% reductions in LPA levels. That's an impact we just haven't seen before with other methods.
Wow. Okay. So this deep dive then is going to be our guide to understanding this completely new landscape. We've got this really insightful document, AMG versus Lilly, LPA.pdf. And it basically lays out this incredible race that's happening between two huge pharmaceutical companies, Amgen and Eli Lilly. They're both pushing forward with these LPA-lowering RNAi therapies, trying to prove they can make a real difference, in preventing heart disease.
Exactly. It's definitely a high-stakes competition. And the outcomes. They could fundamentally change how we think about and manage cardiovascular health for potentially millions of people. The article does a great job laying out their different strategies and, what the results of these big clinical trials could mean for you.
All right, let's get to know the players then. First up, we've got Amgen with their drug olpasiran. Now, the origin story here is pretty interesting. It seems olpasiran didn't actually start in Amgen's own labs.
That's right. It's interesting. Olpasiran was initially developed by a company called Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals. Amgen then licensed the drug and the underlying RNAi tech from Arrowhead way back in 2016. So, yeah, Amgen's leading the charge now on development, and they'd handle commercialization, but they are relying on Arrowhead's specific RNAi platform.
Interesting. Okay, so there's this key external partnership for Amgen. Now, on the other side, we have Lilly and their drug, lepodisiran, and their path seems a bit different, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Lepodisiran started out at Oceana Pharmaceuticals, another company specializing in RNAi. Lilly first partnered with them in 2020, but then in a pretty big move, they just acquired the entire company in 2021. So what that means is Lilly now has full sort of in-house control over the drug and the technology behind it.
Okay, so right away, a really fundamental difference in how they're set up. Amgen's working with an external tech partner. Lilly's brought it all under one roof. What are the sort of strategic implications there? What does that difference mean?
That's a really good question. I mean, for Amgen, relying on Arrowhead might introduce some potential, external dependencies, maybe around manufacturing or even future tech improvements. Lilly, on the other hand, with complete internal control, they might have more agility, a more integrated approach, perhaps, from development right through to getting the drug out there. It definitely raises questions about their long-term flexibility,
Okay. Now, both companies are running these massive phase 3 clinical trials. The goal is to see if lowering LPA actually prevents heart attacks and strokes, right?
Yeah.
Big stuff. But the way they've designed these trials, there seem to be some significant differences.
Exactly right. While the ultimate goal is the same, showing fewer major adverse cardiovascular events, or MACE, the specifics, they give us a peek into their different strategies. Let's look at Amgen's trial first. It's called Oceana Outcomes. They're expecting primary results around December 2026, and they're enrolling about 6,000 patients. A key point is their main endpoint. It's what we call MACE-3.
MACE-3, okay, what exactly does that measure? What does that tell us?
So ME3 typically includes cardiovascular death, non-fatal heart attack, and urgent revascularization. needing procedures like stents or bypass surgery. It's a pretty standard endpoint in lipid trials. By focusing on these, let's say, more frequent events, Amgen might get their answer faster. It suggests maybe a focus on speed, on demonstrating a benefit relatively quickly.
Okay, speed. That seems like a potential plus for Amgen. Now, what about Lilly's trial? That's AC claim LPA.
Right. So Lilly's trial has a later estimated completion date, probably around March 2029, and it's bigger, about 10,000 patients. But the really interesting difference is their primary endpoint, MAE.
And MACE-4 ATS.
ME4 includes everything in MAE3, the CV death, non-fatal MI, urgent revascularization, but it also adds non-fatal stroke, so it's a broader measure. It could give Lilly a more complete picture of the drug's impact across a wider range of major events. But because stroke might happen less often in this group compared to, say, heart attacks, they'll likely need more time and more patients to see a clear effect.
Got it. So it really does sound like Amgen is pushing for results sooner, maybe grabbing that first mover advantage, while Lilly is playing a longer game, aiming for potentially more robust, comprehensive data, including stroke. It's a real strategic trade-off, like in this race, Amgen's sprinting and Lilly's settling in for more of a marathon.
That's a great analogy, actually. Amgen's first mover strategy could mean getting their drug approved and out there earlier. That lets them potentially influence treatment guidelines, maybe secure better pricing early on if they're the only game in town for a while. But the risk is, what if the results aren't super strong? Or the benefit isn't clear across all patient groups because the trial was a bit smaller or the endpoint narrower? That could be a challenge later.
Right, and the flip side, the potential upsides and maybe downsides of Lilly's depth and durability approach.
Well, the upside for Lilly is clear. Including stroke, larger trial, they have the potential to show a more significant overall risk reduction. Plus, more patients means potentially stronger safety and tolerability data, which is always important. Even if they get to market later, if their data package looks much stronger, lepodisiran could end up being seen as the preferred, maybe best-in-class therapy long-term. The main downside, of course, is the wait. Amgen could be establishing itself for years before Lilly even has results.
Okay, let's circle back to the drug effect itself. We talked about these really impressive LPA reductions, often over 90%. I mean, that sounds amazing on paper. But the crucial question is, does lowering that number on a lab report actually translate into fewer heart attacks and strokes for you out in the real world?
That is absolutely the million-dollar question, or maybe billion-dollar question for these companies. And it's exactly what regulators are focused on. While those huge LPA drops are biologically very encouraging, the FDA and other agencies haven't yet said, okay, lowering LPA is proof the drug prevents heart attacks. It's not a validated surrogate endpoint yet. So all the pressure is on these big phase 3 trials to show the hard clinical outcomes, the actual reduction in MACE events. It's simply not enough to just lower the LPA number. They have to prove it protects people.
So it really is all about proving that real-world benefit. And it looks like both companies are also tracking other things in their trials.
Yeah. Beyond
just LPA, right? Secondary endpoint.
Yes, exactly. And those secondary endpoints give us more clues about their broader goals. Amgen, for instance, is also looking closely at changes in LDL-C and non-HDL-C, which might suggest they're hoping to show a wider benefit across different kinds of bad cholesterol and lipoproteins.
And Lilly, what are they focusing on in their secondary measures?
Yes, exactly. And those secondary endpoints give us more clues about their broader goals. Amgen, for instance, is also looking closely at changes in LDL-C and non-HDL-C, which might suggest they're hoping to show a wider benefit across different kinds of bad cholesterol and lipoproteins.
So let's play this out hypothetically. What if, say, Amgen's trial shows a clear, statistically significant benefit, but maybe it's a modest reduction in MACE, and then later, Lilly's trial shows a much larger MACE reduction? How does that play out for approval and how doctors might actually use these?
That's a really plausible scenario. If Amgen gets positive results first, even if modest, they could well gain regulatory approval based on meeting their primary endpoint. Speed counts there, however. If Lilly comes along later with data from a larger trial, using a broader endpoint, showing a substantially bigger benefit, well, that could really shift things. It could heavily influence clinical practice guidelines, prescribing habits, maybe even how insurance companies decide on coverage. Lilly could potentially overtake Amgen as the preferred option if the data is clearly superior, despite the later start.
Let's switch gears slightly to the business side. The article mentions the cholesterol drug market is huge, over $20 billion a year. This focus on LPA could really carve out a significant new niche, couldn't it? Especially using this new RNAi technology.
Oh, absolutely. If these trials are positive, showing that targeting LPA prevents cardiovascular events in people with high levels, Yeah, that opens up a potentially massive new market. And the first company to really establish itself there, get approval, get good reimbursement, shape those initial guidelines, they'll likely have a pretty significant advantage.
The article brings up the PCSK9 inhibitor market as a comparison. What can we learn from how that unfolded?
That's a really useful parallel, I think. With PCSK9 inhibitors, another powerful class of cholesterol drugs being first or among the first really provided a lasting benefit. Amgen's Repatha was one of the pioneers there, and it's kept a strong market position even as competitors arrived. It really suggests that in these big new therapeutic areas, that first mover advantage can be quite sticky, quite durable.
Okay, so maybe Amgen is banking on repeating that kind of success with olpasiran. But Lilly's strategy seems different, betting on having a potentially superior product later based on that more comprehensive data.
Exactly. It looks like Lilly's betting that in the long run, stronger data wins, especially if they can show clear benefits in stroke prevention and have robust safety findings from that bigger trial. They seem to be aiming for that best-in-class label, believing that will ultimately be more valuable, even if it means conceding the initial market entry to Amgen.
Is there a scenario where both just win? Could both drugs end up being widely used?
Definitely possible. I mean, if LPA testing becomes much more common, maybe even routine, as part of cardiovascular risk checks, like we check LDL now, then yeah, the potential market of patients with high LPA could easily be large enough to support multiple successful therapies. But if maybe only one drug shows really compelling results or gets stronger backing from guidelines and payers, the other one could face a much tougher climb to gain significant market share.
Listening to all this competition between Amgen and Lilly, it feels like it's about more than just market share or revenue, doesn't it? It really feels like a crucial scientific investigation. Like we're finally figuring out if LPA should be a primary target in preventing heart disease right alongside LDL cholesterol.
Precisely. I think that's the core of it. This is a truly pivotal moment for understanding LPA's actual role. The results of these trials will tell us a lot about whether we should be actively targeting it with specific therapies, just like we do with LDL. It's fundamental to refining how we prevent cardiovascular disease.
And looking even broader, beyond just these two drugs, what could the outcomes mean for the future of medicine generally?
Oh, quite a bit, potentially. For starters, it'll hugely influence the future development and use of RNAi therapies, not just for lipids, but maybe for lots of other conditions. It will also probably impact how we design trials for diseases that have a strong genetic component, like high LPA does. And of course, it'll shape the commercial strategies for bringing all sorts of new RNA-based drugs from the lab bench to the patients who need them. It's a big deal.
Really is fascinating to watch this unfold. Okay, so after this deep dive into the science, the strategies, the potential outcomes, here's a thought that kind of sticks with me. Given how strongly genetic LPA is, and now we have these potential therapies that can dramatically lower it, should LPA testing just become a standard part of checking cardiovascular risk for everyone? Regardless of what their other cholesterol levels look like, it really makes you think, doesn't it? But the future of truly personalized heart health and maybe proactively managing these risks we're literally born with.